online stuff out, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit tricky for us to present stuff and get all that stuff going. So any little bits of help is greatly appreciated. So, okay, I'm going to shut my microphone off now because you know how much I like to talk.
Well, it's nice
we'll
to talk to you though. Nice to see you.
You too.
Hello, everyone else who has joined us.
How are you today?
Great. The sun is shining so bright through my window. It's amazing. It makes me happy.
I know, it makes such a difference, eh? Such a difference in the sun out.
How are you doing today?
Fabulous. A little sweaty as always, but that's what happens at the end of the day to keep their attention sometimes.
It's a workout. You don't have to do it after hours, see?
Yep.
Just gonna crack my window open a bit.
Oh.
Oh.
Where's that?
I feel that. Yeah. Where are you, Danielle? Where is it overcast and dreary? Oh, in Blenheim. Wow. Want us to sing a song for you? Would that help? Stretching although.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Yes. Someday.
We actually just sang that in our class.
Did you?
Yeah, we just ended our class with the song Tomorrow.
Aw.
I mean, it was a cappella, Brogdon and I, but.
Ending on a good note. Whoops. Okay.
You know what we did today? We had a little bit of time, so we did Google Earth. Remember using that?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Right? Because they couldn't understand the country. Like they're like, we don't live in Canada. I live in Sarnia or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I get lost on there and have to show them my house.
There you go.
Well, we visited many of the students' houses.
Yeah.
It's cool.
They gave us their addresses and we went and visited their house.
Knocked on their doors. Virtually.
That's such a good idea.
It's fun.
It is good. I think we'll just maybe wait a couple minutes. I know we're getting later in the week here, and I know there's lots of stuff going on out there. So we'll wait just a couple minutes to see if anyone else joins, and then we'll get started with today. I'm excited for today, mainly because I've had some teachers reach out with some questions about some things, and I feel like I have kind of an idea of how to answer them, like about exploration time and all of those things. So I'm excited to kind of hear your take on things and how they're being run. So yeah, it'll be good.
Also, if someone wants to mention putting your laptop or device on, like mine's on a box, is so helpful because then you can show like what you're working on. That was a recent discovery. Okay, I'm done talking. Sorry.
We have used
sitting.
We've used before the now I can't think of what it's called. The Osmo. Take the red mirror thing from the Osmo, put it over the camera, and then it'll show.
I also saw somebody had a hack with an old CD that they put it on top of their computer. I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know if it's 100% going to work, but if you put an old CD, it'll reflect down to your keyboard.
And if anyone needs CDs, I've got hundreds of them.
They had that on top of sponges. So they had 2 sponges and then the CD so that it would reflect down.
That's so interesting.
Yes, that's exactly what I saw.
Now,
we can teach our students how to use that too.
Is it backwards though? Like, is it the reverse? Because it's a reflection. Would it be like the?
I haven't tried it. I just saw it on Pinterest.
And I wonder if the 2 would put it the right way. Science.
Well, and you could also just switch your screen, right? To get it to mirror.
Switch your screen. Okay. I've been upside down for days, so.
Wow, that's so interesting. I'm curious if anyone tests it out. email us. I want to hear about it. Actually, I might just test it out too. All right, let's get started. It is 2 minutes after. Welcome. Session 4 today, idea sharing. Very excited to be here. Thank you again for taking the time to join us on the sunshiny somewhere. It is sunshiny in some places. So before we get started, we acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations. Now I feel like we need to change our picture, Gretchen, to something sunshiny and bright.
I agree. Yes.
Next session, whenever that may be,
Yeah.
we'll have it changed. for you.
Okay.
So again, welcome everybody from Gretchen and myself. We're so glad that you are here with us.
Mhm.
And I was saying earlier, I'm excited about today because there's lots of good sharing happening, and I've been kind of trying to troubleshoot with a few teachers. And I'm excited to hear from our virtual as well as from you guys who have been doing this for the week. I'd love to hear what's going on in your rooms. So we're going to quickly talk about Seesaw activities. Janessa mentioned yesterday about not reinventing the wheel. There's so much great stuff out there. We're going to just quickly go through how you can edit those activities. We're going to talk a little bit about exploration time. We're going to journey the idea of math and what it looks like in online learning, and then we'll have a chance to kind of share. But again, please feel free to pop in anytime if you have questions or want to add in your 2 cents for anything. So, Gretchen, why reinvent the wheel?
That's what I think too. There's lots of really good stuff out there, right? And I've seen so much. I search around on Seesaw a lot, actually, to see what I'm able to share with teachers in regards to Indigenous education and history, and see what kinds of things teachers are making on there. And I'm always impressed with a lot of the things that I see on there. So yeah. And I was thinking when I was a teacher in a classroom, when I was a classroom teacher, the way I used Seesaw was primarily for communication at home, right? So now using it for remote learning and assigning activities is totally different from the way that I learned how to use it years ago. So yeah, there's lots of really good stuff on there for sure. So we kind of just wanted to go over, just in case, the way that you are able to share on there. So when you click on the add button here, you can assign an activity, right? And when you click on that there, this comes up. So these are my lessons right here. And I wanted to, what you want to do is choose school and district. And I say school and district because I find there's a lot of things on here that might be created by teachers in other countries, I'll say. And sometimes it's not quite what we're looking for, right? And I'm always, in my role, I'm always looking for things that are appropriate regarding Indigenous history, and we want like local context a lot of the time. So I really, really prefer school and district on here instead of community. So choose kindergarten, and then a lot of lessons will come up for sure on there. Okay. So do you want to talk about these, Alicia?
Yeah, so I was on today and actually just noticed a few activities. So this one I actually borrowed from Cheryl, who I know has been in our session. So thank you, Cheryl, for these activities. And we want to make sure if we want to edit them that we press that little heart. We want to like their activity, and then that way it is placed into your library. So then when you go to browse activity library and you click on my library, then that activity will be in there. Okay, so from there, if you click on the 3 dots, it will give you the option to copy and edit. So then you can take that created activity that you have saved and you can edit it. So you can edit the title, you can edit the student instructions, you can edit the template. It makes it accessible to you. Once you have created and changed it however you would like, just save it. And then that way it has now become yours. So taking other people's ideas again and kind of editing them or modifying them for something that you would like. Maybe you want to simplify them, or maybe you want to add another layer to things. They're there, and then it's less work for you. Remember, we always talk about, we want to work smarter, not harder. Okay, we always want to make sure that we are utilizing everything and all of the knowledge that's out there with teachers in our board. So this is a really great way to do that. Okay. Anything to add from our virtual teachers? Anything that maybe you have found or could add to that? Or
The only negative is that they don't have a crop button, right? Is that right? Yeah, they don't have a crop button. So that's the only thing you might find annoying.
So what I do is I take the photo and I'll use my iPad and I'll put it into my camera, crop it in my camera, and then load it back up onto Seesaw, which allows me to do that crop. But since you don't have an iPad, it is harder.
And a lot of times we add like a song to go with it. So there might not be one. This one does have a song, but if you're looking for alphabet or word of the week, whatever, that's what we would add in.
There's also a comment area, and that's where I usually record my voice. And if someone else has made one, I'll delete theirs and put mine in.
yeah, that's a good one to make sure if there are voice instructions or if they've added voice to maybe make it your own. That's might confuse your kids. Sure.
And so in the show notes too, there's some information that Pam Gallant put together about Seesaw and how to use it in case you have more questions about it. Oh yeah, the snipping tool. That's a good. So that is on the laptop. So you could probably just search for it in that little search thing down at the bottom if you don't have it on your toolbar, and you're able to snip and copy. You can save it. So yeah, I use that all the time actually for the slideshows. So yeah, it's great actually. Thank you.
And sometimes if you're wanting to download a picture or add a picture into it, you have to download onto your computer first before you can add it up into Seesaw. And sometimes it does get frustrating. So don't get frustrated, just download it onto your laptop and then you can just drag it back up and in. Because I know I struggled with that for a while. Or put it in your Google Drive.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, Alicia put the link for the show notes in there for some resources about more Seesaw information for you. That was from in the spring, I believe. Okay. Oh, is there a limit on how many activities you can have in your own library? Have we come across that?
Not yet.
I believe because the board has paid for Seesaw, we don't have a limit.
Great.
So create a way, friends. Yeah. Like a way.
Yes. Okay, so any other questions for right now for our experts about Seesaw?
When in doubt, hit the 3 dots because sometimes things are locked, and just hover over the image and hit those 3 dots and I'll give you some more options there.
Awesome, thank you. Oh. Is there a way to organize the activities?
You can sort them into categories.
You can always search too, right? So if you have the keywords in there too, you can just search for that keyword in your own library too.
Yeah, when you save or create your own, you can decide like what kind of folder you want it to go in to be saved.
Yeah, I think at the bottom of your Seesaw, when you go into My Library, if you scroll down to the bottom, it says My Collections, and you can add a folder, and then you can tag whatever activities so that they kind of stay organized in a folder. Because that is one thing I was finding as I was starting to, accumulate lots of different resources. I was having to search through, so I created a coding folder or a number sense folder or a belonging and contributing folder. So just to kind of keep them organized, whichever way works for you. It's a good question.
Is there a way to add folders?
Yeah, you can also tag, what was I gonna say? You can tag, let me bring it up. The skill. So if you wanted, they all come up there for kindergarten. K.1, communicate with others in a variety of ways. So you can tag that in there too. When you go to the 3 dots and then at the very bottom, hit edit skills.
So that's a nice little tip to moving forward. If we do happen to go longer, that we will obviously have to start teaching new content. So again, thinking with that assessment and evaluation kind of hat on, that's a good way to tag those skills. So when it does become report card time, you have it organized and you can reflect and refer back to all of those skills that you tagged throughout. Just saves you work in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe dig into that a little bit and see if you can find something that's helpful there.
Shall we move on?
I think so.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so we wanted to chat just a little bit about the whole idea of exploration time and what that might look like. I have had a lot of questions come through my email this week about exploration time and like, what does that look like? Does it have like, just what does it look like? We know what it looks like in our classroom. Kids kind of go out, they choose what they want to work with. Maybe they'll come to a teacher who might be doing something, or maybe the teacher will kind of, you know, dig into play with them. But what does this look like in this world of remote? So I would love to hear just from the virtual teachers, and then I'd love to hear how you have managed that for the teachers who have been doing remote learning just for this week. Like, what does that look like in your room? So I'm just going to open the floor up if that's okay. And I would just love to kind of hear what exploration time looks like in your room.
In my room, the kids bring, like you said, in the classroom, they would go and grab whatever they wanted to kind of play with. And they do the same thing in their house. They go and grab whatever they want. They sit in front of their device. And then if they want to share, they wave at me. And then they share what they're doing. My kids all would share for the whole time. So I kind of have to, the hardest part is kind of cutting them off when they want to keep sharing, or sometimes when that kid wants to keep sharing the same transformer over and over again. That's kind of a hard part where you got to find new ways to kind of ask him questions. But I find it's great because it's easier for me to take notes during exploration time like this than it is sometimes for me in the classroom. I do miss things about it, like being able to get on the floor and play with them and stuff, but it's still the same thing, like finding those teachable moments to pull things to do with the curriculum. Like I had a student today who had these 2 trucks, and one was a police truck and one was a fire truck. And it actually came out really naturally. He's like, this person is a lot bigger than this person. So we talked a little bit about things that we would do like in the curriculum, right? And then I asked him, okay, so let's look at your trucks and which one's bigger there. And we talked a little bit about like orientation, like it had some doors that opened up. So I was like, well, what side of the truck is that on? So just like, it's looking for those teachable moments. And I find there's never been a dull moment. I actually had one student today, her sister was showing her how to put on the backgrounds. And so she shared her screen and taught all the kids how to change their backgrounds. There was some who were on iPads, which I believe it doesn't work for, but we pretended we were on a tropical island and we were talking about the sun and what they would do. And we were pretending to like float like starfish in the water. And so it's very like similar to the classroom. You're just kind of trying to pull for those teachable moments. That's how it looks in my classroom. And we have 2 exploration times. So I make sure if a student didn't get a chance to share in the morning, that I start with the kids who haven't had a chance, and then maybe we'll go to second chances. And it's been really great. Like a couple months in, they started to want to talk to each other. And so they would kind of take over, and one girl would be like, I want to talk to this person. And then they would ask another person to come in, and one person would bring one thing to play with. And then all of a sudden you'd see another kid go and run and grab the same thing. So I'd be like, oh, it's a Lego day today. Like everyone's grabbing their Lego. Or it's like, today was all about police cars. So they all had police cars and fire trucks and stuff. So it's fun to see them look at what other people are doing and then go and run and grab that thing and then talk about their play. So I find that a lot of fun.
Anyone else? I can't remember. I feel like it was one of you that was in here. I remember, I feel like maybe Janessa and Stephanie, it was in your class, possibly. I remember sitting in on a class and a little guy wrote this little note that said like, I love you, so and so, and like held it up. Like they're missing those face-to-face connections, but they're finding ways still during virtual learning to still, you know, show that they are thinking about their peers and they're still making those connections. And I think the more that they get used to this kind of platform and this experience, that those heartwarming moments still come out. They're still connecting. So that's awesome.
It's
Anyone
almost like
else?
once they have the permission to, right? Once they know they're allowed to talk to each other, then it really picks up.
For sure.
For a while there was one student that just knew Miss Brogdon's name. And it was wonderful. Miss Brogdon, Miss Brogdon, Miss Brogdon. I'm like, I'll just sit back here.
Just a moment. There's two of us, you know. Would you like Miss Letham or Miss Brogdon? Because it was teacher, 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 teacher. And then would you like Miss Letham or Miss Brogdon? And then it just went to Miss Brogdon, Miss Brogdon.
I was just about to say, at least they're not going teacher, teacher.
No, that's how it, yeah. So he got our names just before Christmas, I think. Just before our winter break. Our exploration time, sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 groups sort of on at the same time doing things, and they'll be talking to each other, and then I may be playing a game with somebody else, and Janessa will be playing with somebody else. So there it is. Sometimes it's loud like a regular kindergarten classroom, because sometimes we have everybody on and they're not muted, and it's exciting sometimes, really, to have those moments where everybody is sort of doing little things and communicating and going back and forth, and they're playing with each other. We have kiddos that will say to one another, like they'll say, Gretchen, can you come and play with me? And Gretchen will say, I'd love to play. And then Elisa might go, I would like to play too. And you go, okay, you can play too. And they'll get their Barbies out and they'll just do this. They're quiet. They're not saying anything to each other, but they're just doing this with Barbies. So it's cute. It really is.
And I love too that when we talked about it in one of the prior sessions, but even that whole idea of like playing a card game together during exploration time. And, you know, Stephanie, you made the comment that like the kids are probably cheating. They probably don't really have those numbers, but it's that process, and it's the whole, they're learning to socialize. They're learning to take turns. They're waiting or able to kind of respond back to someone. So even if there's a few kids that want to play a number match or a go fish or anything like that, that's a good opportunity. I had a teacher. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say, I have found the children's regulation skills online are completely different here than in the classroom. In the beginning, we had a few parents who would write us and say, oh, we're just having a bit of a meltdown, we're going to leave. But now they're not even writing. The children will have a bit of a thing and we're like, would you need a hug? And they'd say, yeah. And so we'd give them a hug, and then they're right back into playing again. So it's very interesting with self-regulation online, I'm finding.
I just had a quick question. I think this is all great, but these parents are the ones that were prepared for virtual teaching, and our parents are not. So we're getting a lot of questions on like, do we have to be on Google Meets? Because I don't have time. I need to work. They're with grandparents. So to schedule an exploration for the whole class, I think would be like impossible, I think, for our parents, just because they did not choose virtual. So the question is, how do you, like, you just do it? We're doing it at 10:30 and whoever comes, and sorry, like.
So in our schedule, some of our whole group times are optional because parents said they didn't want to be on all day. So we just put optional beside it. And if they come, they come. And if they don't, they don't. And we have a few kids that just do Seesaw activities and they never join into our Google Meets.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, we have students who are like synchronous exempt and they just do the Seesaw activities. And then as long as they do the Seesaw activities during the week, then they're marked as present. And then I also have some students who don't join in exploration time. And our principal said, like, just have them send, like, if they want to go outside, which we encourage, right? They want to go outside during that exploration time or do something different, that's completely fine. And then we ask that, you know, could you send us a picture of what they're doing? And then later on they could come and, you know, they could come one time to exploration time and I can share that picture and they could tell us about what they did. So that's another option too.
Yeah, I find our parents are very active on the Seesaw because they're used to it from the springtime. They're not as active in the Google Meets, and it's kind of like it's a burden for them to be on there, some of them.
And in the beginning, there were a lot of discussions where we had to stay super positive. Even live in the background, we'll hear parents getting very frustrated, and just to model that, oh, I know that can be frustrating, you know what I mean? So we definitely had a lot of parents that weren't, I don't know if they even knew that they were committing to virtual learning, and we didn't really know what it was going to look like in the beginning. So I think reassurance, right? And then sometimes it's even talking about the curriculum being like, our curriculum doesn't necessarily say that you have to sit down and do this certain stuff, right? You're having those conversations too. Does that make sense?
And I think even asking the parents and having those conversations with families, what would work best for you and what would work best for your child and your family? Would it be more beneficial if we had a meet time at noon when you have lunch and your child can pop on, and then we'll schedule our lunch at a different time? You know what I mean? And maybe it is a conversation for the other classes to figure out when would be best and how to frame that your class.
Because as of right now, we're just prepared for this week, but there's going to be a conference out that we don't know what's happening. And I just don't want to be like Tanya Lahi is my partner and we're very well with Seesaw, but yeah, I just don't want the parents to be bombarded with the fact that they always have to be on Google Meets. So I think, yeah, sending out an option might be the best for them.
Yeah, and honestly, if it continues, like we've sent home probably 3 surveys by now, just like asking parents, what do you want? Basically, like, do you want it to stay the same? Do you want something different? What works for them?
And we also made it very clear in the beginning that this is a partnership because we're on one side of the screen and they're on the other. We're really working together, even more so than if we were in a physical classroom. So whatever works for the parents, we will make it work on our end as well. If they just want to do Seesaw, great. We will give you Seesaw. You just want to do the live meets? Fantastic. Come and join our live meets. You want to do a little bit of both? Great. It's all up to whatever works for the families and the parents, because we understand too, like there's siblings in the house. They're working from home. Like this is kind of a crazy situation. And we don't want to add a stress of having to teach kindergarten on top of that. We just want to make it like kindergarten is, and fun and exciting and an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, Misty, I'm glad you brought that up because, you're right that these parents in the virtual school, they chose this avenue. And for some children, it's really working. And for some teachers, they're really loving it. And maybe they'll never go back to a face-to-face school. But in the same time, when it's kind of a forced thing, parents might give you a bit of backlash, and they are your biggest supporters right now. And I think that whole conversation around just reaching out to them and being understanding of their concerns, because they're going to be the ones you lean on. So I think if kids can't join the Google Meet and during exploration time and that's not feasible for them, that's okay. It's just like in a classroom, if a little kiddo is tired during that time and maybe that's not the state that they are in, maybe they curl up in a corner and have a little nap. That's okay. So just reassuring parents that it's okay and the expectations are going to be a little bit more lax. But thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
I know sometimes we even record little videos of something we've taught. So maybe it could be, I'm thinking of a number between 8 and 10. What number am I? And you send it out as a provocation, and then that might be their number talk for the day. And the children or the parents will, they'll write an email back saying, oh, we think it's this number, or they'll send a little video clip of, oh, we think it's this number. I've recorded myself reading a book and put the video on Seesaw. And then parents can opt into Seesaw when it's convenient for them and see that book. And then the little connection to it is, if you were Pete, what would your problem be? Or how would you solve this? And then you finish the book the next day even. So it's in 2 parts. So you can talk about a problem, a solution, and who's the character in this book, and trying to just have those conversations. So the families are having also those conversations with their kiddos at night. Could be helpful. So it's on their time, not maybe your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking, because we split up into groups for like literacy. So I had suggested to her, maybe I should just do my video of my literacy and have that as like an open play so that people can just be in there, and then send out my video for literacy, because I don't want anybody to miss it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think whatever's going to work for you is going to be different than what's going to work for us and different families, because everybody has different timelines. Maybe some of the parents are working and their children are at childcare, so it's something that they can actually opt into, maybe as a nighttime thing, as a nighttime routine with their family, and that could work for them. You know what I mean? And trying to really work as you were saying, a collaborative team. Families, educators, children. Yeah.
That's the way that we've approached ours, Misty. And I had a long conversation with a parent today, and in their home, they try to stay very low tech. So this has been a challenge for them, in that it's not really how they want their child to spend their day in front of the screen. So I just assured that parent that, next week, if we continue, we'll just make sure that we have more of those hands-on, kind of like a provocation, like you mentioned, and let them just send photos back of the learning that's happening. Because like you mentioned, we have to meet them where they are. This isn't for everybody. This isn't what our classroom, the parents have asked for.
Yeah, and we have a lot of working parents, and we do have childcare parents. And I found like it was beneficial in spring with the activities and constantly having contact with them through Seesaw, because we were always sending voice memos every time they were sending things. But just the expectation of them having to be on the computer, because I said in school, even when we let them use an iPad, they are on a limited time. They get like 15 minutes out of the whole entire day. And now they're going to be on these tech all day. Not all day, but a lot of the day, and then they're going to leave and go play their PlayStation. So there's a lot of electronic use with these kids, and it just makes me a bit nervous.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
When you're doing your virtual, are you guys always together, or do you divide? Like, say, would Stephanie take one group and you would take another group at the same time, or are you guys always on together?
Depends who you're with. Stephanie, oh my gosh, I just called you like a weird name. Steph and I do everything together.
Okay.
But
We
not
do.
everybody does that. That's what works for us, and that's
Okay.
our teaching style. But
And it works for us because it keeps our energy level really high.
Yes.
And
Okay.
we're also generally teaching in the same room. Like, we're socially distanced, but we're in the same walls. So
Okay.
I
previous to
go
the
over,
lockdown, yeah.
yeah. So I go over to Janessa's house because my son is doing virtual high school. So it's
Okay.
really hard for him to hear me in my small little house going, woo, wobbly man.
Yeah, because this is all new for us, and we're trying, and we have a small amount of numbers anyway. We don't have all of our kiddies on, but I'm thinking if we do virtual again next week, I think we might see our numbers hop up again. And we find that this week we're kind of losing them. Some of them, like, we can keep them for a bit, but as soon as we ask a question and somebody starts to want to answer it, we lose like 4 or 5 of them. They're off like doing their own thing, which is fine, because I'm sure they're probably still listening and are with us because they're there, but I just wonder sometimes if it's more beneficial to, like, if you're going to be trying to maybe teach something, to split half and half, like her take 10 and I take 10 and teach the same thing. But that's not what we do in the classroom. So we were kind of trying to like figure that out in our head for next week when our numbers may hop up a bit again.
So, and it's a lot of fun with Janessa and I. We actually will feed off each other.
Yeah, so do Carissa and I.
So when it's really quiet or something, I'm like, oh my goodness, Miss Letham, did you know? And I get really animated and a lot of fun. And then they're really engaged, right? Because that does happen. And the kiddos that are sort of off, they're off anyway. But it's our way of really trying to make this the best possible experience that they can have at this moment.
Well, and we try and make it as fun as we can too, right? Because we want them to stay on. Like, we're like trying to make it as animated as what we can. But I just wonder if any of you did split and if you found it more beneficial splitting, or if you'd like staying together. Because I feel like Carissa and I will stay together. I can't see us, because again, sometimes she's the only one that's communicating back to me. So I need her to ask those questions, to be like, okay, what do you think? So, okay, that's great. Thanks, girls.
To Carrie as well. Brandy and I stay together, but what we do is we have split up our class into small groups.
Yes. Okay.
So we find that that's more beneficial for us and has worked with our parents. So we meet together as a whole in the morning for a morning meeting, and then throughout the day they break up. So we have 5 at a time, 5 or 6, and we find those small groups are more beneficial on our end. So the kids can interact a little bit better when there's only 4 or 5 on the screen, not as loud. And then, Brandy and I, we do all the groups together and we don't split up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
My EC and I split up. We have our morning together. We split up for small groups. And then we only have like 4 to 6, depending on, we have a few students who just have a bit of a different schedule, but we have about 4 to 6 in a group. And we find that works for us. And we take turns with exploration time. So we flip-flop back and forth between the 2 of us. And when I'm in exploration time, she's approving and commenting on Seesaw. And then in the afternoon, it's the other way around. And then that way we find that our Seesaw is not building up, because when we were done school, like, it was taking us forever to approve and comment on everything. So we found that really worked, and we didn't really need both of us in exploration time anyways. So that just worked for us. I mean, sometimes I'm a little crazy, and I think I have enough energy sometimes for like 4 people. Probably doing my ECE a favor, but so it's whatever works for you guys. Like some friends said, they may just have kids not answering and stuff. I just kind of, once I got to know my students, and you guys all know your students, so I switched up my groups a few times, because there's some kids that are really quiet, and then there's other kids who will just like dominate the whole conversation and won't get a word in. So I would take those kids who, wanted to answer all the time and make sure I spread them out as much as possible, and then put in some of those other kids. And some of the quieter ones, the more outgoing ones, would actually like and get them engaged more and stuff too. But if I put all the like quiet ones together, which happened in a few groups at the beginning when I didn't really know them, those groups were like kind of pulling teeth, and I was like pulling out the whole dog and pony show, doing like everything, just being crazy to try and get them to talk and stuff. So I could see it working like either way, but my EC and I do split up for our small groups and our exploration time, but we do all get together in the morning, and we both pop into our exploration times once we're done Seesaw, and then we remind them of the materials they need the next day, or just come to play when we're done kind of the whole Seesaw part of approving and commenting on everything. That's what we do.
And take chances, right? So don't promise it forever. Just say, hey, today we're going to try little groups. And we did that in the beginning, and sometimes only one person showed up, so we switched it up. You don't have to commit to like the whole week or anything. Just say, today we're going to try this and see how it goes.
And I think we also find that when we put in Seesaw, what we're kind of doing, our thoughts for the week of what we're doing, the students that are really interested on some of the things that we're going to talk about will pop in on those days. So if we're saying, hey, in your goodie bag today that we sent out, we're going to be using this, and then all of them join to figure out what we're going to do with that. And then tomorrow, you know, hey, tomorrow get your old broken crayons. We're going to make some art and get an old t-shirt because you might want to make an art transfer. So then we'll have more show up. We'll do a little video and put it on Seesaw, but they'll show up to figure out, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to do that? And that's sort of one of those engaging things to sort of really pull them into those meets sometimes.
I think the flexibility is important right now. Like flexibility is going to be so key. You know, we don't know what is in our future or how long this is all going to last, but you know, you might try something out and say, okay, that totally did not work for my kids. It did not work for us. It was out of our comfort zone. Maybe we'll try that again another time. And just that whole idea of being flexible and, you know, understanding that this is new to everyone and figuring out what works for you and your partner. You guys are the educators, and you will figure it out. It's leaning on each other and really kind of utilizing that partnership that you are so fortunate to have, especially during these times. I have always said, and always hear teachers in classrooms saying, I wish we had 2 teachers in a classroom all the time. So you guys are so lucky to have this partnership with 2 educators working together. So you'll figure it out. I have confidence.
All right, we wanted to talk a little bit, well, I guess we'll have to do it pretty quickly. We're running out of time here. Just about some websites and things that you can use to make games or activities with your students. And you can link to Seesaw with these too. So I forget, oh, I see Lauren. So this is Lauren and Brandy's on the left here. Would you like to talk about that, Lauren and Brandy?
So yesterday we played sight word bingo. So spin the wheel and they all make their own sight word, or sorry, this was alphabet bingo. We played sight word go fish before that with our one group. So spin the wheel, they have their bingo card, and then they try to match their letters.
Can you customize that wheel too? Like, can you put your sight words into the wheel if you wanted to?
Yep, you can. So we have done sight word bingo before too, where, yeah, just customize.
Yeah, on this website, you can customize or you can choose one that's already been made.
Okay, great. I'm not sure if Brittany Korstangi is with us. She was going to try to be here for our meeting today. But this was something that she created and I actually saw it on social media. And I said, I would love to be able to share it. So the one on the right-hand side. Brittany, are you with us today? Couldn't see her name in the participants. Okay, so I'll share it. So what she has done is she found one too where you can put images in. And so her class is learning about the letter N too. And so she has pictures on here. And if it starts with N, they sound it out or they say the sound, but she was also able to put pictures of her students in there too, to you know, kids love to see pictures of themselves. So I was able to get this video. Oops. So they could play bingo with this too. You could put pictures on there and the kids have to identify what letter that starts with, or even you could do the scavenger hunt game that you were talking about yesterday. Spin the wheel. If it lands on a picture of something that starts with an S, you can go and search for things that start with the letter S. There's a lot of different ways that you could play. Use this wheel with pictures of your students. Spell your friend's name, right? Or things that you can find around in your house that start with the letter T. So wordwall.net, pickerwheel.com. So we can put this into the show notes as well too. And there are a lot of random name generator list that you can go to as well too. So if you're interested in that, that's something you can look for as well. Does anybody else, maybe in the virtual school, have other examples of how they use these kinds of websites with your class?
We've also been using Boom Cards, which is a website you can go to. Now there's two options. You can have the paid site, which would give you the results from the Boom Card tasks, or I use the free site. And all I do is just fast pin any of the activities and I post them on Seesaw. And we've also used them in our live Google Meets as well. So I've shared my screen. Unfortunately, I have to be the one who's clicking and doing the game, but they're the ones who can shout out to me the answers, and then we can play it that way as well. So that's Boom Cards.
In that you're able to, they have cards that are already made, right? Or you can.
Correct. I've never made my own deck. I've only used ones that have already been pre-made.
Okay. So that means that there's lots of good stuff in there, right?
Thousands.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we can, we should add that to the show notes as well for everybody to check out.
I'll keep adding to it and some of the things that are coming up. And if you have anything, you can feel free to pop in there. When I was visiting with the virtual school the week before Christmas, one of the French immersion classrooms, I believe it was Ashley Miller and Kathy Gagne, I believe, they were using a website that was, I'm going to look up for sure, but it was something about online stopwatch. That it had like this cute little mystery box that they were using. There was online dice on there. There were timers that were animated either with numbers. There were like sensory ones that had like an hourglass that had trickling sand. So I'll try to find that and add that also to the show notes because there was some neat stuff in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
He is asking about sample schedules that people are doing. Misty, in the chat, do you have access or can you see that Google Doc link that I put up there a little bit prior? If so, there are a couple that we shared our first session, a couple from the virtual school that are up there. And if anyone else has any to add, then we can add those to it as well. Let's see if I can find some for you.
Mm-hmm.
Flippity is another great one that's being mentioned in the chat for matching games that can link into Seesaw. So Flippity is something else to kind of check out.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your game there too, Lauren and Brandy, much appreciated. Okay, so let's move on.
Yeah, so I think we are getting short on time. I loved all that conversation. I hope that everyone found some of these ideas helpful and the conversations helpful as we kind of journey on to next week. I just quickly wanted to share some things, and I think we'll stop maybe after this, Gretchen, but some of the math opportunities that are kind of out there, the which one doesn't belong that a lot of the teachers have been using. Just getting kids talking, it aligns with our strategic plan for our board. Just getting kids to communicate, getting them to feel comfortable and feel confident that they can share their thinking. They don't always have to be right. So that is a really good one. I found, and I wanted to share this with you because this was something when I was in the virtual world, I was like, oh man, how do these teachers do this? And I had to figure it out. But a cookie sheet with magnets became my best friend. So like, I was like, I don't understand how they're doing this. Like I have a whiteboard, how am I gonna show them? I had an iPad, so I couldn't kind of put it there. So I grabbed an old cookie sheet that I had, which was gross. So I replaced it with one from the dollar store. But you know, when you're playing with loose parts or when you have things, I stuck little tiny magnets on the back and they just, you can use it to kind of sort, you can use it to count, you can use it to subbatize. I also created a little 5-frame or 10-frame box here. Hey, we were using snowflakes. So if, you know, number talks or subatizing is something that you in your classroom, you can still do all this stuff. These come off. So if your kids are still within 5 and still working within 5, you can also add these and put them on your cookie sheet as well. And then that way, you know, you can use this, and then that way you don't have to worry about figuring out how your kids are going to see what you're doing. So this is something that was a big learning curve for me, which seems so simple, but it's something that just makes your life that little tiny bit easier. It's like that mind blow moment.
I know that some of the other virtual teachers were saying that they use egg cartons, cut the egg cartons, and they can use those for the group of 5, because we can use egg cartons. We can have peanut butter, you know, it's virtual, it's at home, so that they can cut those egg cartons and make that into.
Awesome. One other game, and I'm going
to
to
on one side of your cookie sheet. On one side of your cookie sheet, you could draw that 5-frame on there and flip it over when you need to use it, or if you need a 10-frame on the other side, right? That's another thing. Draw it with a Sharpie and then remove it with some hand sanitizer later, right?
Or if you use the washable markers, just wash it right off next time you use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing I thought was a really interesting activity and super simple, I saw a group using when they were playing or when they were in small groups. And again, I believe this was Kathy Gagne and Ashley Miller. I always want to make sure that I give them credit. But that photo in the middle there, they allowed a student to decide what they wanted to create. So one child was like, I want to make a monster. So they said, okay, draw a big circle, that's going to be our monster head. And then the kids or the teacher would roll a dice. And if they rolled a 5 and they were like, okay, 5, what do you want to make 5 of? We want the monster to have 5 eyes, or we want them to have 5 noses. And that works on, you know, that one-to-one correspondence and being able to coordinate the numbers and to recognize them. So they would draw that on. And then she would say, okay, I want you to show me, how else can you show me 5? So some of them would make tally marks. Some of them would put it in a 5-frame. Some of them would use their fingers and say like 4 and 1, that makes a 5. So just giving them those opportunities, super simple math, building it in, it's game-based, it's fun, it's simple. And the kids get so much from it, and it's a good way for you to kind of see where your students are at as well. So that was kind of a fun little, if you're looking for a last minute idea too.
And I think it's really important allowing the children to make those decisions, because it gives them control of things that they're going to do in an environment where there isn't much control at the moment. So giving them permission to have ownership on something is really important, I think.
Absolutely, so important. All right, guys, we're at that like 10 to 3 mark, and I know there's other sessions starting at 3, and there's also maybe some important stuff happening. I've shared this link in the show notes, online math resources. Just check them out. A link is there. I know there's a lot, but there's some websites that we've talked about over the last couple days, and maybe some other stuff as well that might be of interest to you, the virtual manipulative. So something to kind of dig around and play with if you're looking for ideas. And as always, be flexible, be kind to yourselves. Take it easy. It's going to be great. Is what it is, and we'll all make it through. We did last time. It's only making us stronger educators, in my opinion. So be nice to yourselves. Take some time. Your mental health first and foremost.
So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you have questions, send us an email and let us know how it's going too. Tell us what's working. We love to hear those good stories.
Yes, absolutely. Reach out. Feedback form. If this continues, maybe next week we'll get to see you again. So let us know. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Good job. Good job, everybody.